Alright, so today we're going to be building a chatbot using Spring AI and OpenAI API keys. So you will need basic Spring AI, you need basic Spring Boot understanding in Java fundamentals as well. If you need to learn all this stuff, there's a couple of YouTube channels I recommend. There's Telesco, there's Spring Firmware Guru, there's Paratipi Ready. All these guys like go into like details about Java, Spring Boot, and then they all have courses you can buy and learn from as well. So the first part of the video is going to be about Spring AI, what is Spring AI and all that stuff. And then the next part, we're going to get into the nitty gritty of the code. All right. So Spring AI is a set of libraries that help you send prompts to AI models, get response back, chain together AI agents, use AI embeddings with databases, which we're going to get into in later videos, use image processing, text to speech. There's so many more. But today we're going to be talking about a chat client API in Spring AI. I'll show you how to create a simple AI chatbot that communicates with OpenAI by sending questions and then receiving answers as results. Now, trying to vibe code this whole project can be very difficult. So when I'm coding, I'll show you what you can vibe code so your work can be easier. Okay, now let's get into the whole project. So let's start by creating our new project. Okay. So this is just like going to start a Spring at the IO website. You can just create your project over here instead of going over there, and then you can do that as well if you don't have the full version and you just want to do this. So let's just create a project. It's going to be a chat model demo. We're going to use Maven, create Git repository. Yeah, that's fine. Java version. So I prefer using Java version 21. Just because it's right in the middle between like newer versions and also older versions. So feel free to use any version, but just be sure it's compatible with what we'll be doing, because I don't know if all of them are compatible, but just use 21 just to be safe, all right. So okay, so this part we're going to be adding our dependencies. First of all, I like to use we'll have to use Spring Web, so we also need Thymeleaf as well. We also need OpenAI dependency, and then we can create the project. It should be creating soon. So I've already created this project, so I just copied my chat that HTML, the front page of what we're going to be seeing. I just copied it and then pasted it over here. It's going to be in a GitHub repo, so you guys can just download it. So this whole thing, most of it was just vibe coded. I just did a basic thing and just asked Junie to just make it look better, and then it did a really good job. Let me show you how it looks like. Yeah, so this is what it at the end it came out with. Okay, so before we start, we need to get our OpenAI API keys. So we can just I already have the tab loaded. So it's platform.openai.com to get your API keys. You can just create a new secret key, and let's just name this chat model key. Agent projects. Okay. Create secret key. Copy this, and then yeah, just create a text file and just put the keys. Paste the keys in there. Okay, that works. All right, so this is really important. So after we do this, we go into our project and then resources, application.properties, and then we can add our OpenAI API keys. So we can add our so we come to our application.properties, and then we can add our Spring .openai. Okay, there we go. Thank you, Copilot. So we can create a environment variable to store the keys, which is the safest way we can store keys. So we can add our application.properties, and then we can add our Spring .openai. Okay, there we go. Thank you, Copilot. So we can create a environment variable to store the keys, which is the safest way we can store keys. So we can create a environment variable to store the keys, which is the safest way we can store keys. So let's just make it caps. So Copilot, thank you once more. So to use our keys in an environment variable, what we need to do is just come right here. Make sure your keys are copied first, and then so our keys are stored here, right? So make sure it's copied. So let's just copy it just to be sure. Key. So that is configuration, modify option. What is it? Should be environment variable. So the option is going to be available for us. Then click the dollar sign, and then we can add OpenAI API key. The value should be what we copied. Okay. Okay. That's it. We just created an environment. We just created an environment variable for our keys now. So the next part is just going to be creating our packages. So these packages are the models right here is just where like the blueprint of data transfer is going to be at. Is where like the data we're going to use is going to be defined and held, and then the service is like where the brains of the app are, like where the business logic is. So it's like where the app thinks or does its things, and then the controller is basically like where the endpoints are. So that's where the communication between the chat that HTML was it. So it's going to be the communication between this one. It's going to be in the controller, right? And let's get into it. First of all, let's start by creating our models. So new Java class. In the new versions of Spring Boot, we can use records as models, which means we don't even need to use Lombok or getters and setters and all that, constructors. Records just make it more easier. So we're first going to create our questions model. Spelled it wrong. Questions model, and then no, thank you. Let's see. Now we're also going to create our answer model. So Java class record answer. All right. So the second part, the second thing we're going to do is create a service interface and create our method. Let's get into this. So there's going to be two classes in the service package. There's going to be the interface and then the interface implementation. This makes it more easier, and I'll explain why in a bit. So Java class interface. We're going to name this OpenAI service. Okay, so this is going to have answer, get, answer question. Oh, yeah, thank you, Copilot. Let's just see what is wrong here. Import class. Import class. Okay, should be good. All right, so let's create our implementation. So Java class. This implementation is going to implement the service above, so we just want to call it OpenAI service implementation. Okay, let's just use this. Thank you, Copilot. Question imports. Okay, we're gonna get into this later on, but we're gonna use this for now. Let's just go ahead and add our chat model from Spring AI. So private final chat model. Oh, thank you. Wow, that was you added a constructor for us. Okay. So yeah, this is the main problem. We need to implement the prompts, the prompt template. So oh, this is just gonna go away. Question the question. Okay, that works perfectly. And then so we're gonna create the chat response. Chat response. Chat response. Chatmodel.com. Yeah, thank you. Chat that call should be that call. Yes. There we go. Now the return is going to return an answer that is going to get response and as output and also as a text. So let's just get it right here. Return new answer. Okay. Response. Yes. That get results. That get output. What is wrong here? All right, so I found out what the problem was. So little typo here. All right, now that we have our models service, where our business logic is, and we're gonna get into the controller. All right, we're gonna build a simple controller. Java class. We're gonna call this the question controller. Yes, let's go. All right, so this is gonna be controller. Okay, so this side too, you can just use Juni to create a controller that communicates with the chat.html or even ChatGPT codecs, whatever you want to use. It's pretty easy to do this. Once you have the service and then the models, you can easily do this side. So the most important stuff is getting your dependency and then the model service. That's all you need to do by yourself. The rest can be just vibe coded. So just let you guys know too, my keys are text. It's probably going to be deleted. So if you guys want to get your own keys, it's $5. Yes, so you can get that. All right, let's get into it. All we need to do is all right, so we can just start by creating our post mapping. Thank you, Copilot. Let's import the class now. So I just want to say, notice how we use controller instead of REST controller. So we do this because unlike REST controller, the controller defaults to using view instead of a JSON format. So I'm just going to explain the whole thing on a high level. So to understand what's going on, the user will visit the URL that's set to right here and then sees the chat interface. That's the chat.html, right? So this is going to display the chat.html. You type a question and then submit the form. The form submission is sent to ask question right here, the endpoint, and then the controller that we just made creates a question object from the input, and then it creates the controller also calls the OpenAI service to get an answer. That's right here. So how the AI works is the OpenAI service implementation that we made over here as our business logic creates a prompt from the question, and then it sends a prompt to the OpenAI API using the Spring API chat model, and then it receives a response from the API and creates an answer using the object over here, and then the response is sent to as an answer. Now, the controller adds the question and answer to the model, and the Thymeleaf renders the chat interface with questions and answers. That's the whole high level explanation of what goes on. So let me just run this so you see what is going on, see if there's any problems with it. Yeah, I need you right now. Localhost 80, yes, sure. Let's see. Uh-oh. Alright guys, so I had a little bit of problem running my application. I was getting a white label error. Let's say hello. See, I was getting this the whole time. So I just used Junie to help me understand what's going on. And it turns out when I copied the HTML from my other project, this chat.html, it has ask anything, right? But over here, my controller post mapping is saying ask question. So let me show you. So Junie just changed it for me right here. So that was a problem. Okay, thank you. Let's see if it works now. Let's rerun the whole project. And thank you, Junie. Let's see if it's gonna work now. Let's see what's going on. Check lines. Say hello again. Boom. Yes. So, all right. So it's working now. Thank you so much, Junie. All right. So let's see. Let me explain what's going on. So this is how the application works, right? You visit the URL localhost 8080 or whatever the website is, and then let me just show you localhost 8080, and then it gets you to this page, right? And then you type your question. Hello, let's say what is the capital of France? Just use that. Right, okay. So you type in your question and then it submits the form, right? So the form submission is sent to ask question right here. That's what I had a problem. And then the controller creates a question object from the inputs, and the controller calls the OpenAI service, right? And then it allows it to get an answer using the business logic right here. The OpenAI service also creates a prompt from the question, and then sends a prompt to the OpenAI API using the Spring AI's chat model. And then it receives a response from the API and creates an answer object, and then the controller the controller right here adds the question and answer to the model using the Thymeleaf template. This is the chat.html to the Thymeleaf template. So it then returns chat.html with the answer it got from the answer model. I hope that makes sense, but this is how the whole thing works. Alright, so I just want to mention that there's a lot more you can do with chat models. There's adding prompts to decrease hallucinations. It's also working with your own database to make the prompts not deviate from what you want to do. There's a lot more to it. You can go to the documentation and then learn more about this. Thank you so much for staying through the video. So the next video is going to be about vector databases and then working with RAG as well. So we're going to get into that later on. See you guys soon.